We can see, hear, and move about as well as experience other sensations familiar to us. But do our capabilities end there? Could it be that somebody hijacked our most important capability for his own ends, and then forbid any discussion of it? As a result, there is something out there that has forever altered human history and culture, something we know nothing about. What are they keeping from us? Who has built an empire by depriving us of the best that life has to offer? Who stunted human development, and who has something to gain from that? What's hidden inside each and every one of us, and what does it hold for the future? This is a case where a chain of events unexpectedly led from one isolated event to the unriddling of the greatest mysteries in human history.
I loved fairy tales as a child, and so it's not surprised that I've devoted my whole life since childhood to studying the phase.
The phase is an umbrella term that encompasses all hybrid states in which the brain's centers of consciousness are active during rapid eye movement, or REM sleep, which is when people dream. In terms of sensation, the phase is like an out-of-body experience or becoming conscious while dreaming. Meanwhile, sensations can be more intense than physical ones, and you can't feel your real body on your bed. Michael Raduga began intensely studying the phase phenomenon at age 16. In 2007, he opened the OOBE Research Center in order to study the phase and conduct mass experiments with groups of people.
With the experience I gained, I suddenly began to notice odd coincidences. For example, the phase is practiced when falling asleep or awakening.
Nearly all close encounters of the third kind with extraterrestrial civilizations and alien abductions take place at those very times, and the very same sensations are described.
These coincidences are strange, but who would have believed me that something was up? To get to the bottom of it, we decided to undertake a couple of mad scientist experiments. And that was the start of an incredible story.
On October 7, 2011 in Los Angeles, the OOBE Research Center brought together volunteers to artificially reproduce close encounters of the third kind, that is, alien abduction.
We simply took a group of people, told them how to enter the phase, and asked them to find aliens in it.
As a result of the experiment, 7 out of 20 volunteers were able to come into personal or visual contact with extraterrestrials. Experiment participant Alexander N.
I woke up and made an attempt to enter the phase, and it worked. I got up from my body in my own room. Not wanting to waste any more time, I tried to find aliens. 3 of them materialized right before my eyes. They seemed like creatures from the movie The Thing.
Experiment participant Sasha M.
I spontaneously woke up in the middle of the night, presumably at around 4 a.m. Upon waking up, I felt intense heat in my body and used that sensation to try to separate from it. I was immediately successful. I then sat up in bed, stood up, and turned around to watch myself lying there. Realizing that I'd separated from my body, I left my bedroom and went to the window, beyond which was an unusual sight. As I observed the scene, I gradually began to see aliens lurking in the bushes or going about some business. They all looked extremely realistic.
Experiment participant Craig P.
Upon awakening, I decided to separate from my body in the first 5 seconds. I found myself in a forest clearing. There was a flying saucer in the clearing. 2 aliens were near the flying saucer. The next thing I remember was lying on the grass near the flying saucer, and that there were people that looked like children in a circle around me.
The question was then, if you can see aliens on cue, are you seeing real aliens from outer space, or are you seeing something else?
Typical alien abduction stories look a lot different when seen in the light of this experiment, and make a lot more sense. It's the same pattern everywhere.
All these alien abduction stories are nothing other than narratives of spontaneous phase experiences.
The goal of the experiment was to demonstrate that extraterrestrial civilizations aren't behind alien abduction stories, but rather the hidden abilities of the quote-unquote abductees are. And so millions of people who didn't understand their own incredible abilities came to believe in extraterrestrial intelligence. The phase has thus imperceptibly but deeply affected not only our take on extraterrestrial interest in our planet, but also our entire culture. An enormous number of popular films and books are devoted to stories of abduction by aliens or close contact with them.
This is a flying saucer.
According to research, all of this would have been impossible were it not for the phase. And yet, nobody knows about the phase itself. Not content to rest on its laurels, the OOBE Research Center reconvened volunteers in Los Angeles for a no less ambitious experiment on November 11, 2011. As it turns out, nearly all scriptural encounters with God and angels take place at the moment of falling asleep or awakening from ordinary sleep. The Bible directly states that that's when God comes if you fail to hear Him during your daily life.
We gave volunteers an incredible task: artificially reproduce a biblical miracle.
Out of many Bible stories involving the moment of falling asleep or awakening, a specific passage was chosen, the prophet Elijah's version of an angel in chapter 19 of the first book of Kings.
And as he lay and slept under a juniper tree, behold, then an angel touched him, and said unto him, Arise and eat. And he looked, and behold, there was a cake baking on the coals, and a cruse of water at his head. And he did eat, and drank, and laid him down again.
And so, what happened? Incredibly, the experiment resulted in 24 of 30 volunteers entering the phase, while 16 of them artificially reproduced the biblical miracle. Experiment participant, Debbie H.
When I woke, the vibrations were very strong, and I know my breathing got heavier and deeper. I tried levitation, and I got flashes of being out of my body. I thought, this is it, and immediately went to look for the angel. In the corner of my bedroom, it definitely felt like it was there. I asked the angel for any information, and it said it was Gabriel. I then went to look for food, found an apple in the kitchen, and took a bite.
Experiment participant, Yaroslav K.
I awoke in a half-awake state and immediately separated from my body by standing up. I was in my room. It was night outside the window, and a light shone in the kitchen. I grabbed an open can of corn from the refrigerator and then went towards the balcony. I put my right hand back behind me, trying to feel for an angel. As soon as I had touched it, I turned around. The angel was hovering 3 feet off the floor, right in front of me. He was bright white, had wings, and was about 1.5 feet tall. He was looking at me. I felt a slight sense of shock and surprise.
Experiment participant, Anna A.
I awoke, immediately got up from my body. Then I began feverishly recalling what I had to do next. That's when the figure of an angel in a white robe appeared, saying, "Have some pastries." The taste of the pastries turned out to be way more realistic than in real life.
The phase often occurs spontaneously, which is why there is nothing surprising about the fact that the same also occurred with biblical figures.
Is the phase not at the root of other unusual stories in the Bible, and even encounters with God? Nearly all of them take place at night when the protagonist is awakened or falling asleep. If you read the Bible carefully, it turns out that it's literally chock full of such phenomena.
Want to read about the phase? Open the Bible. The same can be said not only for alien abduction stories, but many other phenomena as well.
Indeed, in nearly all cases of encounters with the supernatural, people are either in a relaxed state, falling asleep, or waking up.
If you're lying down or sitting back when something supernatural happens to you, then you've simply slipped into the phase.
It turns out that the phase is omnipresent throughout our history. It has had an enormous influence on our entire culture and religious beliefs.
Think how much the Bible has affected our history and day-to-day lives. The Bible would hardly have come into existence if it were not for the faith. And we are not only talking about Christianity.
The facts show that the phase was taken advantage of no less by every other religion, including Islam, Judaism, and Buddhism. Where would all of these miracles have come from if not the phase? But what does the common man know about the phase? Although the phase has asserted itself in our lives since time immemorial, someone decided to help themselves to its fruits and send it on a completely different course to further their own interests.
It's just wrong. We are being duped and led away from the truth. And as a result, we are not developing this amazing inborn ability. We've come to believe in miracles from without, even though we are hardwired for them.
But who benefits? Why has humanity been so completely cut off from the phase? Many historians hold that religions were founded and propped up in order to serve the interests of rulers by controlling the population. Considered from that perspective, elites have reason to fear the phase, as learning it dispels many illusions.
Once you realize this and are able to do it, you look at the consumerism being pushed in the modern world in a completely different way.
Who needs Superman these days? Man has been programmed for an unconscious existence, working his entire life from sunup to sundown to produce goods no one needs, just so that he can spend the money he earns on buying those very same useless items. Modern society depends on this endless rat race, so much that it would immediately collapse if people merely woke up to what they spend most of their lives doing.
Thanks to its unique practical applications, the phase can make people happy, independent, and self-sufficient. Who could be against that?
As it turns out, governments worldwide have set out to never allow the practice of the phase to become widespread, no matter what the cost. They're much more comfortable using it to control people through religion or supernatural phenomena. Few see the truth behind the subterfuge.
They've kept us down for a long while. They didn't let people learn anything about the phase, or give them any way to study it. However, times are changing. The time has come for a real revolution in our understanding of who we are. When you talk about the phase, a lot of people consider it to be nonsense, something way out there, or simply something impossible. However, the next studies brought totally unexpected results.
The phase arises when centers of consciousness are activated during REM sleep. This results in a whole cluster of phenomena where a person is fully conscious of what is going on, but does not feel his physical body. Michael Raduga's experiments in California demonstrated that the phase explains many religious miracles and alien abductions, as well as most supernatural phenomena. Incredibly, that's just the beginning.
The most intense form of the phase is called out-of-body travel.
In terms of sensation, people perceive out-of-body experiences as an exit of the soul from the body. However, no one has ever proven this to actually be the case. According to official statistics, 1 in every 5 people alive today has encountered the sensation of leaving the body.
That's 1.5 billion people.
To put those numbers to the test, we interviewed regular passers-by in the street. Had they had at least one out-of-body experience?
Not really.
Oh no, I haven't felt that experience.
I don't think I felt anything like that. That sounds kind of weird.
I woke up and I tried to stand up, but I couldn't stand up. But it feels like something's pulling you back. And then I got really scared because that's scary. You're trying to get up, but you can't.
When it happened, I felt like, I flew off my body, and like a soul, like a ghost, and I actually saw myself sleeping on the couch.
It felt like I was afloat, and then I had to touch my forehead to know that I'm awake. It's kind of weird.
As it turns out, the supposedly rare phenomenon of out-of-body travel is actually quite widespread.
However, the most well-known form of the phase is lucid dreaming. This is a common phenomenon where a person suddenly realizes that he is in the dream world and not in reality.
It often occurs when experiencing nightmares while asleep. Even according to the most conservative estimates, lucid dreaming has been experienced by no less than 60% of the Earth's population.
Inside my dream, I saw a lot of toys around me, and next time I start feeling that I woke up. So, and I remember this feeling that I tried to grab all these toys close to me, just try to take them with me to my real life.
So when I was a child, I had just a regular kind of crazy dream. Nothing makes sense, but for some reason I realized nothing made sense, and that allowed me to realize I was dreaming, and for it to become a lucid dream.
It happened like a few times, probably around like 5 times, what I remember. And yeah, it was actually a big fun. Like it was a fun actually when you woke up inside and you can just realizing that you're sleeping and you can do whatever you want.
In the end, our survey fully confirms the statistics. The phase in the form of lucid dreaming is indeed a widespread phenomenon.
Another symptom of the phase is sleep paralysis, which is when you are falling asleep or waking up and suddenly realize that you can't move your physical body.
Sleep paralysis is a phenomenon well known to humanity. It is alluded to in the Bible, as well as the folklore of every culture in the world. Moreover, it's a typical accompaniment to many supernatural phenomena, including alien abduction. Sleep paralysis is a consequence of REM sleep. That's why it's a natural state, and one that everyone spends several hours in every night while asleep. Sleep paralysis is necessary to keep the physical body from moving while dreaming. According to statistics, no less than 30% of the population has encountered sleep paralysis at least once in their lives.
Like you're paralyzed? Yeah, sometimes I feel like that. Like I want to try to move, but I can't. Yeah, I feel that.
When you come back from your dream and come back into your body, you feel like you can move.
Like, it was crazy. I tried to move, but I couldn't move. I didn't know if I was dreaming or if I was awake, but that was not a good feeling.
As the survey demonstrated, sleep paralysis as a type of phase is actually quite frequently encountered.
And let's not forget that false awakenings, which are extremely common, are also a form of the phase.
Actually, unrecognized false awakenings account for most supernatural phenomena. Although it seems to you that you've woken up, you're actually still in the phase, which can lead to anything happening. According to Michael Raduga's estimates, no less than 90% of the world's population has experienced them. And that's 6.3 billion people.
Strange to wake up and can find that you are not where you thought you were.
Before going to school, I thought I was taking a bath already, but in my dream, but in the reality, I was just asleep.
Yeah, I had experience like that where I would wake up inside of a dream, and then I would wake up from that. Because I guess when I woke up from the dream, I was still dreaming. So after that, I woke up and it was like, so basically I had like 2 wake-up experiences.
You might simply turn to your side upon awakening and go back to sleep, all without suspecting that you hadn't actually moved a muscle.
Among esoterics, the phase is also known by the term astral projection.
Upon encountering the phase, people with mystical views concluded that they'd entered a parallel world called the astral plane. However, the sensations they describe are consistent with typical phase experiences. Meanwhile, despite being known under many names, the phase is typical of most mystical and religious movements. It is practically always considered to be the pinnacle of spiritual development and an attainment of the highest level.
The phase actually comes naturally to everybody. It's everywhere in our lives. But who's aware of it?
It's incredible. Billions of people encounter the phase, yet there is no widely known information about it.
Governments try to act as if they don't see what's going on. It's nuts. It warps our whole worldview. It would be the same as not noticing the moon in the sky or your own nose. It seemed like the phase had already turned my world upside down. But what was next? I could not have imagined that the most important discoveries were still to come.
From childhood on, we grow accustomed to books and films about parallel worlds of one sort or another.
But have you ever wondered why that's what we like?
Perhaps we're longing for something subconsciously. The answer to these questions comes to us in a large number of films, books, and paintings by authors who have clearly been touched by the phase.
There's one thing you should know about me.
The most well-known example of this is the Christopher Nolan film Inception, which is based on the premise that phase practitioners, under the control of main character Leonardo DiCaprio, are somehow able to steal information from other people's minds.
They're gonna kill me for sure.
Did you do it?
In Wes Craven's legendary horror movie Nightmare on Elm Street, a psychopath played by Robert Englund contemplates his murderous deeds in the world of the phase.
Don't fall asleep.
Have you ever had a dream, Neo, that you were so sure was real?
The Wachowski brothers' film The Matrix showcases the phase as having been technologically mastered and having subsumed all of humanity, which the protagonist, played by Keanu Reeves, must save. How does one explain the phase's penetration so deep into art and culture?
Could it be that the ability to spend part of our lives there is hardwired into us, and yet denied to us for a whole number of reasons?
At a subconscious level, people seem to be aware that they can enter the world where anything is possible. But do they ever accomplish these things in daily life? Well, not really. And as a result, they try to connect to it through fiction.
Doesn't happen just because. It's not just a practice that you can just either take up or not take up. It's our future.
Imagine a world in which people go about their business during the day, but come night remain awake while enjoying a second life in the world of the phase. In it, all sensations are even more intense than that of the everyday world, and meanwhile no physical limitations exist. People in the world of the phase can travel, obtain information, heal themselves, develop their creativity, and realize all of their desires, even those unattainable in the physical world. But how will this occur? The first such course of events is a natural evolution of consciousness. There's a reason why the phase is characterized by the activation of the frontal lobe of the brain during REM sleep. It's those parts of the brain that are responsible for man having become much more conscious and developed from other primates. There was a time when the human brain started developing consciousness and self-awareness. Over thousands of years, this phenomenon, one unique to mankind, developed and took over the waking state. Meanwhile, consciousness became more and more advanced and started consuming more and more of the brain's resources.
At one point, our cup overflowed. Consciousness simply ran out of room in the waking state, and it gradually began to expand into the nearest physiological state, REM sleep.
This led to a new hybrid state, the phase. The evolution of consciousness greatly accelerated in the 20th century. This process was affected by science, modern means of communication, television, computers, and the internet. The expansion of consciousness into REM sleep likewise picked up speed.
It's quite possible that we all would have spent a part of our lives in the phase. Instead of just sleeping at night, if occurrences of the phase were not attributed to other phenomena. This pretty much arrested our development, and our task is to correct that mistake.
Is the phase already a natural inborn ability for all of us? What if people develop this gift starting in early childhood?
Children often talk about phase-like phenomena, but then often forget them as they grow up.
If a child doesn't learn to speak by age 6, then it'll never learn. Is not the same mistake being made with regards to the phase?
I have no doubt that we will live in two worlds in the future, thanks to the phase. It will come naturally and practically effortlessly. However, few people know that simple techniques already make this possible.
We've been talking about practitioners of out-of-body travel, lucid dreaming, and astral projection. All of these people really practice one and the same thing, the phase. Don Stallworthy works as a police officer and lives in the town of Ventura in Southern California.
The first time I had an out-of-body experience, I woke up, but I didn't move. And immediately I started to get this very strong, heavy, sinking feeling. And everything started to go black. And I felt like I was sinking into my bed, and it was very scary. And then all of a sudden, I was above my bed floating in the air. And it was very cool because I could look down and see my wife in bed and myself.
He has a large, close-knit family, and spending time with them is his main pastime. However, he has another major hobby, the practice of the phase, which he's been engaged in for nearly 3 years.
I've had 59 experiences. Most of them are lucid dreams where I'm dreaming and I realize that I'm in the dream. A little bit less than half of those experiences have been out-of-body experiences where I actually have to do a technique to exit my body.
Dodd provides close support to the OOBE Research Center in its work with volunteers when conducting mass experiments.
But when I started getting better and better at it, I really got good at being able to create my environment by opening a door. And before I opened the door, I would picture in my head that there's going to be another world on the other side of that door. And whatever I picture when I open that door is there. It's amazing.
Valeria Lukyanova, widely known under her creative handle Emma221, first encountered the phase at age 5.
At first I experienced fear, seeing as how I hadn't known that this was all safe.
In adolescence, she became able to take full control over spontaneous experiences and began to fully live in two worlds.
I usually make use of it for creative development and travel. I also meet with various people, or more precisely beings from other dimensions, and I travel to other planets.
Valeria adheres to mystical views regarding the nature of the phenomenon, and this doesn't get in the way of her being an advanced practitioner.
I recommend that everyone try this experience at least once, as it's the most intense experience that I've ever had.
One of the reasons I learned about it was because my mom, she used to talk about astral projection.
Jaime Lindquist Minoz works as a massage therapist in Orange, California.
Eager to do that, I went and laid down in the bed at night and started meditating. Suddenly, when I felt the vibrations, I stay calm. And when I felt like I was separating from the body, I felt like I was dying. I felt like I was just ripping apart. So I felt like, oh no, I'm dying. I want to go back to my body. I don't want this.
Jaime has been practicing the phase in the form of lucid dreaming and out-of-body travel since he was 12 years old.
So I did it again, and then knowingly that what you said about the vibrations and also sleep paralysis that I was getting, then I just stay relaxed when it started happening again. And when I detached myself from the body, I knew what was happening, and I started walking around the house.
At one point, his church forbade him from practicing the phase. However, Jaime later decided that there was no contradiction with his worldview, and so he continued on with his practice.
I see this world a lot better now because knowing that I'm here to experience something physical, and that I also able to experience something that is not physical, it makes me very happy to know that I have the best and I feel balanced.
The popularity of the phase grows with each passing day. If this keeps on continuing, the majority of the world's population will soon be taking it up.
These revolutionary changes to human consciousness are inevitable. The phase is the one thing that our civilization has not yet come to grips with. As soon as it became clear how important the phase was, the next step was to study the opportunities it offers.
Any practitioner will assure you that the phase is the most amazing thing you can experience. It's the limitless internal universe that is much larger than the cosmos we point our telescopes at.
I have been in the phase thousands of times, and if there weren't any way to somehow make use of it, I would have spent no less time in it.
So when I'm in a dream and I'm lucid, I get very excited. I cannot believe that I am actually in the dream world and I'm conscious and I'm aware that I'm dreaming. And this power that I get is amazing because I feel like I can do anything. I could go fly if I want to. I could create whatever I want.
It's the most intense experience. For me, there's nothing better than it.
It's an amazing gift that we all have. It's sad that we don't practice and we don't try to investigate more about it because it's a good way of getting ahead of in your life.
Nevertheless, quite a number of specific fields of application for the phase have come to light. One example is the opportunity to travel. We won't go into whether or not a practitioner can actually teleport to somewhere in the real world. But wherever that practitioner goes, it will be 100% real in terms of sensation.
It's so real in terms of sensory perception that the physical world is but a dream in comparison.
As a result, in the phase you can visit places you only dreamed about before, any place on Earth, anywhere in the universe, any time in history, and much, much more.
I remember going into outer space for the first time. And that was very scary.
One of the most popular uses of the phase is to obtain information from it. The pragmatically minded explain this as occurring thanks to the hidden resources of the subconscious mind, while mystics point to informational fields of one type or another. The simplest way to do this in the phase is to find a book in it or simply pose your question to someone or something there.
So I mostly get knowledge or advice, or I meet my guides and they help me out. Usually I would talk to my dad for advice, and he wise man, so he will tell me something that I need to do and how to handle it. And when I come back, usually works out pretty good at the end.
After all, wasn't it the phase that gave people information when they encountered God in sub-waking states? Wasn't it the phase that Nikola Tesla had in mind when he described some other world from which he gleaned discoveries that were far ahead of his time?
The phase is the one place where people can obtain direct access to their inner genius and obtain answers to most questions regarding business, their personal life, health, and whatever else they might want to know.
Can the phase be used as a means to self-healing? There are many ways to use the phase to this end. For example, while in the phase, you can directly influence bodily organs and take medicine, as well as employ dozens of other therapies.
There has not been enough research in this field, but sooner or later, it will lead to a true revolution in medicine. Every phaser knows that it really works.
I was in an accident about a year and a half ago, and I hurt my neck. I found some pills in my dream on the counter, and as I was taking these pills, I told myself that they were to help my neck heal itself from the pain and the tightness. And I remember taking these pills and then waking up, and I felt pretty good. It was pretty amazing. For that day, I remember having a lot less pain than I had previous to that.
It's quite possible that most illnesses will soon be treated free of cost using the phase. This will land a crushing blow on the modern pharmaceutical industry.
In the future, even diseases like cancer and AIDS could potentially be cured using the phase.
Any person may be found in the phase. For example, this might be an historical figure, famous scientist, or even a popular actor or musician.
And I was going up, and then I saw this white light, and then as I saw that, I said, "That's God." So I started asking for knowledge, understanding, comprehension, love, kindness. When I was saying that mentally, I heard an echo, like the message was being carried out up there, and I saw these angels, like beings around me, and then they were carrying out the messages to him. And then once I saw that, then I said, I'm happy. That's all I need. And I went like this and I went back to my body.
Moreover, this is the one place where it's possible to communicate with the deceased, whether or not what is actually occurring is an illusion of the mind or communion with a real soul.
One of these persons was actually my grandfather that died probably 20 years ago. And I remember before walking through a door, I remember thinking really hard, I want to see my grandfather on the other side of this door. I opened the door and I saw him in the room, and he was sitting down, and he was actually with another one of my grandfathers that had died.
Can the phase be used as a platform for honing skills? Practicing skills in the phase strengthens the same neural pathways as physical rehearsal. This allows you to gain experience and perfect moves. For example, those who practice martial arts often find famous masters to obtain knowledge from or spar with. Why is it that creative people make up one of the largest groups of phase practitioners? The fact is that the phase gives them an incredible source of inspiration, as well as an opportunity to find artistic creations in it and then reproduce them in real life.
I became a very creative person. Inspiration awakened inside me, and I finally got out of a depression.
Painters behold new landscapes. Architects design buildings they are working on. Musicians discover compositions in the phase. For many young people, the phase often serves as an alternative to video entertainment. Now, instead of viewing images on a screen, they can participate in events by feeling every possible sensation, including even pain and various aromas. It's also possible to program a scenario and simulate various events.
Regular computer games are laughable in comparison with entertainment to be had in the phase.
Young people in search of unusual sensations often turn to narcotics. If a person encounters the phase at the beginning stage of such a quest, he or she will often satisfy the desire for new sensations without resorting to drugs.
All jokes and arguments come to an end when it comes to the disabled and the phase.
The blind can see again in the phase. The crippled can once again walk. For people living with disabilities, the phase is the one place to experience sensations otherwise denied to them. In this case, the phase can partially supplant physical reality.
There are many disabled people among practitioners of the phase. They are certainly some of its most grateful students.
Many limitations exist in the physical world. Does the phase not provide ample opportunity to realize any desire or fantasy?
One thing I like to do during my lucid dreams is to fly. Actually, that's probably the first thing I always try to do. It's not just flying through the air and, like you picture it in your head, you're just flying and it's great, but you feel everything. You feel the wind blowing on your skin. You feel the wind brushing your hair back. And the faster you go, the more you feel the speed increase.
I wanted to experience what it is to be a dragon. And suddenly I felt my arms standing and extending, and I saw a red dragon. I was toy a red dragon, and I started flying, and it was an amazing feeling.
People experiencing hunger in the real world can enjoy fine dining in the phase. Some might desire to explore the surface of Mars. Others dream of a supercar. Still others long to enjoy a tropical island paradise. For some, the realization of sexual fantasies in the phase is important.
It often occurs without any forethought whatsoever. You simply find yourself in a situation where you can do anything.
That's when all hidden and unrealized sexual desires surface. The situation becomes even more interesting in that the sexual act can be performed with any person. Meanwhile, all sensations and orgasms are not only realistic and controllable, but their intensity can exceed that of their physical counterparts.
And those are just a few examples of how the phase can be used. Someday, all of these opportunities will bring people to devote themselves to the phase, and it will lead to a true revolution in many areas of our lives. I devoted the most time and energy to studying how to make it easier for people to enter the phase. It turned out that there was nothing supernatural about it.
Earlier, it had been believed that such states require years of training and special gifts. But Michael unexpectedly brought to light that everyone can enter the phase, and it's actually quite easy if you do everything right.
You can try simple techniques right here and now and have the most amazing experience of your life.
The modern and pragmatic approach has put the phase within reach after a few attempts. Is this not the best proof of our evolution in the direction of life in two worlds? The phase and its affiliated practices have long been considered difficult or even impossible to achieve due to the exclusive use of the direct method, which requires that one relax and leave the body. However, the best phase entrance techniques for novices are those performed upon awakening.
We were the first in the world to jump on this and made a real breakthrough. The phase suddenly came within everyone's reach. It's enough to make from 1 to 5 solid attempts to find yourself in the phase using the indirect method.
What's the secret behind the indirect method? It turns out that the natural human sleep cycle ends with REM sleep, which is why people are nearly always in the phase or close to it while awakening. It's enough to make a bit of effort over the course of several seconds. Let's say a practitioner awakens and immediately tries to separate. If unsuccessful, cycle through several techniques. Phantom wiggling suddenly works and serves as a signal to separate from the body.
Basically, while quickly cycling through techniques, you need to get one of them to work over the course of a minute, and need to try to separate from your body right there.
Let's review how to do that in more detail. First, before falling asleep, you need to affirm your attention to enter the phase. This will allow you to wake up and immediately recall what you've set out to do. Immediately after awakening, try not to make any physical movements or open your eyes. Next, you need to try to simply get up, roll out, or levitate, and without moving a physical muscle. If you are unsuccessful at separating from the body immediately after awakening, then you'll want to cycle through techniques over the course of a minute, devoting several seconds to each one. For example, do phantom wiggling, which means trying to get the real sensation of up and down or any other movement with your hand, but without imagining anything or moving a physical muscle. This should gradually lead to a realistic feeling of your hand moving sluggishly. Just as soon as that happens, immediately separate from your body, starting off from the movement of the phantom limb. If phantom wiggling doesn't work within 5 seconds, then you can try to see a picture or some other image through closed eyes. You need to get at least some sort of image to appear, even if it's dim and hazy, to conclude that the technique has worked. Getting an image is a sign that you need to try to separate immediately. If images don't appear either during the first 5 seconds, you can try to visualize your hands, trying to feel and see them close to you while rubbing them against each other. If the imagined hands in front of your eyes are suddenly replaced by real sensations, it's a sign of the phase. That's why you need to immediately try to separate. If visualizing your hands doesn't work, then you need to start the cycle over from the beginning and cycle through techniques over the course of a minute until one works. Meanwhile, if separation has been successful immediately upon awakening or after a technique worked, then the phaser should make everything hyper-realistic by quickly palpitating and scrutinizing everything around. Afterwards, you can carry on with your plan of action.
If nothing happens after 1 minute of cycling techniques upon awakening, then it's better to fall asleep with the intention of waking up and trying once again.
That way you can perform many attempts over the course of a single night and enter the phase several times on the very first day. The questions novices ask mainly concern separation. How do practitioners describe it?
And whenever I start to feel one of these techniques start to feel like it's really happening, and then I know I can get out of my body. So what I do usually to get out of my body is by just rolling off to the side of the bed.
At that moment, I simply know that it'll work for me right then. There aren't any extraneous thoughts. I simply think about it and it's like I just got up without moving a muscle. That is, I levitate over my body or feel that I've gotten up. It's very much like a usual movement.
Usually start happening to me like that, and then I start feeling like the phantom wiggling, or I feel my body jolting. So once I do that, then I roll out. Or if I don't do the roll out, then I do the jumping.
During training sessions, Michael asks his students to describe to him how they were able to separate, but without using the words easy, simple, or as usual. None are able to do so.
It nearly always looks like a normal movement with the physical body. You simply stand up at the right moment using your sensations.
People are usually skeptical of the phase, but even following this abbreviated procedure will allow anyone to experience the phase.
All that you need for a successful phase practice is to simply follow the detailed instructions to the letter. It's really easy. You can literally do this today or tomorrow and encounter what the ancients believed to be a visitation of the gods.
In February 2012, the OOBE Research Center brought together volunteers in the United States and Russia for a new experiment. Researchers have always found it strange that there are no differences in terms of sensation between descriptions of typical near-death and phase experiences.
It's also a sensation of exit from the body, remaining conscious, flight, and so on.
The experiment resulted in 20 volunteers reproducing the flight through a tunnel and towards the light described in accounts of near-death experiences during clinical death. Experiment participant Philip Y.
I tried to separate from my body during a morning awakening, but was unsuccessful. I then began doing the techniques of rotating and observing images. A moment later, I found myself in a tunnel with a light at the end. The sensation of flight towards the light lasted for 5 to 7 seconds. It was accompanied by a pleasant feeling and full awareness of what was going on.
Experiment participant Anna I.
I was falling back asleep in the morning while imagining the tunnel. It appeared after a while and pulled me out of my body and right inside. The tunnel was narrow, not more than a yard wide. It looked something like a matrix or a crossword puzzle. I flew for quite a long time. There was a light at the end of the tunnel. Once I fell through it, I encountered my deceased cat. He took me into a room that was also flooded in light. My grandma and grandpa were there, and sitting in different corners for some reason. I said hello to them, but then rushed to get out of that empty room.
Experiment participant Yuri D.
Having been able to catch a nighttime awakening, I exited using the technique of sensory motor visualization. I decided to fall down headfirst into the tunnel with my eyes closed. The tunnel became visible. It was black with white plumes erupting on the sides. Some kind of music began playing. There was also this blissful feeling. that long-awaited freedom and happiness were imminent. I didn't fly all the way to the light. Unfortunately, I was returned to my body.
The experience obtained during the experiment were compared and contrasted with a database of 3,000 real near-death experiences. Were there any differences?
It turned out that in the near-death experiences we obtained, there wasn't a single detail described that was uncharacteristic of real-life visions during clinical death.
It's not only that we can live in two worlds, here and in the phase. It looks like our life is so tied to this phenomenon that that's exactly what it ends with. What's next? Who knows?
It is possible that the most important experiments are still to come. Meanwhile, we all need to recognize the facts that are already out there and open our eyes to the obvious. A revolution in consciousness is coming.
We can walk, see, hear, and exist in the phase, and thus live in two worlds. Don't let go of your chance to become a man or woman of the future right now. Try to enter the phase just once, and your life will never be the same. Nobody can stop it now.
As a child, I loved it when my mom read me fairy tales. As I got older, I got pretty upset after realizing that none of them could come true. But then it turned out that life was even more wondrous than I could imagine. I feel like I now understand what those fairy tales were really about.